Hey, welcome back or welcome for the first time to my channel. My name is Bryn. I am transgender and non-binary and I make videos about those topics. Today I wanted to talk about something that I feel like hopefully it gives maybe some suggestions or some clarity or something. But essentially it is me and how I kind of paved my own path regarding my transition. Before I get started, a little bit of background information about me. I was assigned male at birth and raised as a boy. I came out as a trans woman when I was 18, started HRT when I was almost 20, and came out as non-binary when I was 21, and I am currently 25. So it's been a little while. It's been a long road with figuring out my gender and all that kind of stuff. I wanted to kind of lay out not necessarily a step-by-step process because everybody's transition is definitely different, but I wanted to kind of lay out how I figured these things out, how I came about these things, and maybe things that you can put into your life that would help. Because truly, I do wish I would have had somebody to look at. And I say that in a lot of my videos, but I really did learn not all this stuff, but I learned a lot of this stuff without feeling like I connected to other people in the trans or non-binary community because of my assigned gender at birth and all that kind of stuff. So let's start off with representation. As we all know, many of you tell me this, I already know this, there's barely any representation for people assigned male at birth and who are non-binary. And from my perspective or my experience, I guess, the ones that I have seen tend to like the people that I see who were assigned male at birth and non-binary, a lot of the times appear overtly feminine. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but I never connected to that. And so I spent a large chunk of my life feeling very, very out of place because I didn't know who I was and I couldn't pick apart the people around me to say, oh, that makes sense, that feels like me. Nothing felt like me. The closest thing I had to people who felt like me were people who were assigned female at birth, who were gender non-conforming, whether they were non-binary, whether they, had started to transition, or whether they just dressed in guys' clothing or like whatever. Those were the people that kind of like lit up my heart, like, yeah, like that's really cool. I wish I could do that. And it took me a very long time to realize that actually I can do that, even though I was assigned male at birth. I thought that was something that was very limited to people assigned female at birth, and I'll get into that, but I felt very, very limited. And that's hard. It's hard to walk around the world and feel like you're the only one who's experienced something, especially something as complicated as gender that affects literally everything. Gender is placed into every single part of our society for like no freaking reason. So to feel isolated in that is to basically feel isolated in many, many parts of your life. And it sucks. It just sucks. And I went through that, and I know a lot of you are going through that, or have been going through that, or whatever. So I definitely feel for you. Not a fun time at all. So jumping back to the fact that I was assigned male at birth, I felt like this label of being assigned male at birth, I almost took it as an identity, which isn't wrong in and of itself if that's something you feel comfortable with, but it was a limiting identity. To me, being assigned male at birth and knowing that I'm not a guy inherently made me feminine, and I didn't align with that, and I didn't know why, and it just made me feel more confused. It was like I had all these categories of different types of people, and I fit none of them. And I'm like, so I kind of spent my life trying to fit these different things. Like, there was a very small portion of my life where I tried to be masculine when I was like in middle school or high school, like something like very, like, 12, 13, 14, I was like lifting weights, like I was like strong. I lifted it for like 3 days, but whatever. I tried to do that. Then I tried to be a gay guy. And I mean, I do like men, but It was like the identity of like, what do gay guys around me look like? Never felt like them. I never felt like a gay guy when it came to the aesthetic and the way that, like, I felt very, very disconnected from gay men, even though I was like, but I am a gay man, because I was a guy, or I thought I was a guy, and I like men. So that was confusing. And then I was like, well, maybe I'm a woman, let's try this. No. It made me even more depressed, because I felt like I had to be feminine. And it was just this ongoing struggle to just find someone I could latch onto and be like, yes, like, yes, that's me. I want to be like you. I want to be like that. That's exactly what I want. And the people that I got closest to doing that with were people who were not assigned male at birth. And so it felt like I was letting the fact that I was assigned male at birth define me. And it held me back. It held me back from being myself. And it took me a long time to realize that, for sure. I didn't realize it at first. I just thought it is what it is. I can't change it, you know? And the way that I started realizing that it, you know, my assigned gender at birth doesn't matter in terms of what my identity is today, it was because, well, it was partially because I was so depressed as everything else I was trying to fit into, but also I started asking myself why. And that is something that I ask myself in most situations, even things that don't regard being trans and stuff like that. But it was like, why do I have to be assigned female at birth in order to appear this way or look this way or be this way? And it was because I was taking other people's projections or assumed projections, things that I hadn't even heard, but I just assumed this is how people would feel. I was taking them and I was internalizing them. So the idea of being assigned male at birth and non-binary and appearing in a way that isn't feminine, to me, felt invalidating. I can't be trans if I'm gonna appear masculine, right? And that's how I felt. But eventually I got to the point where I was like, but why can't I do that? Because I can. And again, I don't, well, not again, but like if you've watched my other videos, you know, I don't identify with masculinity like at all. But I just mean that I'm talking about my androgyny, especially when it is void of things like fancy jewelry and stuff like that, that I might appear masculine to the world, even though to me it's androgyny. To the world, it might be viewed as masculinity. And at the time, I didn't understand that androgyny could be an identity. I really didn't understand much about androgyny, so I was looking at the world in a very masculine versus feminine way. And once I started asking myself why, it started breaking down those walls of, you can't do this because you were assigned male at birth. Why can't people who were assigned male at birth do this? Because people won't take me seriously. But like, I got to the point where I was like, I don't care if people take me seriously anymore. And I will say that I am very fortunate that that thought was not really, like the thought that people wouldn't take me seriously was me being fearful rather than it being rooted in reality, because really, people do. I am very fortunate. I have coworkers, all my friends, most of my family that I talk to, you know, they respect me and they don't not take me seriously because I'm not overtly feminine. And that has definitely helped a lot. And I know that there are people who can't say the same, and I know that other people's perspectives of you can really get you down. So I'm not trying to say that, like, basically, oh, just get over it, because it's not that easy, and it's something that you would have to weigh the pros and the cons to. But I'm saying for me, you know, I basically just decided one day, screw it. If people don't respect me, they can just get the F out of my life, and I'm gonna be what I want to be. And I don't quite know who that is yet, but it's definitely less feminine than the person that I've been portraying as. And yeah. So I would say that a big part of paving your own path is about perspective, and really things in general. Perspective plays a lot into it, and obviously that's not true for like everything, and it's not the end all be all, you know. Just because you shift your perspective doesn't mean everything is fixed. And I don't ever want to come on here and just kind of be like, this is what I did, so it's like so easy, because it's not. And it might, like, I can't tell you how to forge your own path. So if this is something that doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you. And I'm not trying to like I don't know, put my experience like above everybody else's, and like oh, I have the rule book. I don't. This is just what I happen to do, and it happened to work. And so if you can adopt any of these actions or whatever that I took and it helps you, then I'm really glad. And that is why I am making this video. I would also say being open-minded. That goes with perspective, but just to kind of reiterate, like, please be open-minded, because like, even think like, okay, at some point it was like an absurd idea that someone from the Earth could fly to the moon, right? But someone was just like, but what if we could? And then they took all these steps to do it. It was like but what if we could? You know, and so like, if someone wouldn't have thought about something unrealistic or impossible, then the impossible never would have happened. But you kind of have to, like, just because something doesn't seem possible doesn't mean it's not possible. It just means it doesn't seem it. Next thing that I want to mention, something that really, really helped me, and it's something that's a little bit more dramatic and probably a little bit more difficult for most people. But for me, everything just happened to align, and it worked out very well. But during the beginning of the pandemic last year, my partner and I had broken up, and we were living together, and it was a bad breakup. So my brother helped me, and I ended up moving about an hour and a half away from where I was living. And I didn't know anyone in this town besides my brother and one of our childhood friends who's known me since I was like 5 or something. It was absolutely phenomenal for me. Well, not exactly, because I had a manic episode and it was very bad, but aside from the manic episode, just talking about my gender experience, it was really, really amazing, because I had the opportunity to dress however I wanted to dress, be whoever I wanted to be. No one knew who I used to be. No one had any reason to believe anything other than what I was putting on my body and dressing my body as. And it was incredibly freeing. And I was so bored because of the pandemic. So I went on walks like every day for hours, and I could switch it up every day. And like, there were people outside, not a whole lot, but there were people outside, and they saw me, but like, I never had to worry, like, they're not going to take me seriously because I was assigned male at birth, because they didn't know I was assigned male at birth. And there was no way of them ever finding out, unless they happened to like be friends with my brother or something, but like, they weren't. So it gave me a lot of freedom, for sure. And like, I'm very big on freedom in general, but especially with my gender. It was a very, very important time in my life for me and for figuring out my gender. I also experimented with hats and different jewelry and earrings and, I don't know, just a bunch of different stuff. I was able to experiment, I would say. And that changed everything. All these experimentations and this freedom also helped to shift my perspective. And obviously, it's not necessarily realistic to tell you to move away from the town that you're in for like 6 months and dress however you want. and then come back home. I know that that's not realistic, but you know, it might be worthwhile to take a weekend vacation like once a month or something and go by yourself or with your partner or with somebody that you trust or whatever, and go to a town an hour away or whatever, where the people there aren't people that you're going to know, and just be yourself regardless of what it is, or try something new, or like experiment. Like, even if you're like, I don't know that I'm gonna like this, you can still get clarity of like, okay, I tried this and it made me feel terrible, or I tried this and it made me feel wonderful. And you can kind of start to figure things out that way. And you can even ask yourself, when you do realize, you know, let's say rings, for example. Rings are something that for me help my hands feel less masculine, and I am obsessed with rings, which is why I have one on basically every finger. And the reason that I like them is because it makes my hands look less masculine. And so knowing that, I now know, which I already knew this, but, you know, my goal is to look less masculine. And so if you go and you dress a certain way and you're like, I really like this, why do you like it? Why, you know, what part of dysphoria does it help you relieve? And you can kind of expand on that over time. Or you can say, I really hated this because, you know, it made me feel dysphoric, or it just made me feel like I looked bad, or like whatever, I don't know. But if you can figure out why you like or don't like the things that you like or don't like, you can help to apply that to new experimentations and kind of gauge your relationship with your expression that way. So that would be something that I would definitely recommend. I know it's much easier said than done, and I know it can be really terrifying, like very terrifying, especially considering, you know, if you're going an hour away, you'll probably end up having to use a public restroom. And if that's the case, like, well, what if I dress this way? I don't want to, you know, I get it. There's a lot more that goes into it than what I'm saying. There's a lot more layers. It's a lot more complex. I'm not trying to make this seem like, oh, it's just easy, just do it. It's not just easy, and you can't, I mean, I guess you can just do it, but it's not that simple, and I understand that, and I just want to reiterate that because I don't want anybody to think that I'm kind of just making light of it or acting like if it's a struggle for you, I'm not trying to act like you're in the wrong or you just need to be stronger or like something like that. It's not that at all. I understand there's a lot more complexities, and even my experience like is different from other people's. It definitely is. You know, I have supportive people in my life, and there's some people that don't have supportive people, and all those kinds of things are factors into everything. But I am just kind of giving my experience in hopes that it could help someone else. And the biggest thing I would say is just patience. I know, like, literally, that is the most annoying thing I've ever heard. Like, when I watch videos, whether it's, like, trans videos or, like, I used to watch a bunch of videos on, like, how to grow your hair out, and, like, everyone's like, step number 1, be patient. It's, like, the most annoying thing ever. Nobody wants to be patient. Nobody wants to wait. Obviously, I mean, especially when you're trans and you've been, like, waiting to find yourself your whole life, why the heck would you want to wait any longer? And I know that's so much easier said than done. I hate being patient. It's the most annoying thing. But I know for me, the fact that it took me a while to just be okay with being patient, and what ended up happening, I put so much pressure on myself to figure things out that everything felt more confusing and more frustrating than it needed to be, when all I really needed was patience. And so I'm here to remind you that you will get to where you want to get one day. I truly do believe that. And I want to say that in hopes that you'll be able to hold on to that, and it might make things easier for you. One last thing that I want to say before I go, also, there is something that may help. I have a post on Instagram about basically feeling very invalidated because I couldn't find any representation of me around me, in the world around me, on Instagram in general. it was just, there was so little information about non-binary people who were assigned male at birth who are androgynous. And it made me feel really bad about myself for a long time. And I was scrolling through Instagram the other day. I went through and archived a bunch of my photos. So if you go on my Instagram, that's why most of my photos are gone. But I specifically left up this one photo in case any of you wanted to read it. You can even save it so that you can read it whenever. But it's like, me reading this the other day helped me. So hopefully it would help you too. But it's just about basically forging my own path and like coming to accept that just because I don't see people around me who are like me doesn't mean that who I am is invalid. And I really wish I would have been able to hear that from someone, but I also respect the fact that I learned it on my own. And I'm happy that I learned it regardless of whether I learned it from somebody else or from me. But I wanted to put it out there to help all of you remember that you're not alone. I know I'm just one person, but, you know, and I will say I don't have everything together. Just because I make YouTube videos doesn't mean I'm, like, special. It literally just means that I make YouTube videos, and there's still stuff that I'm learning. There's still stuff that I don't know about myself, you know. There's still, yeah. So I just wanted to put that out there, and I also want to remind all of you that I do appreciate all your comments. I never imagined, like, I'm getting very close to 1,000 subscribers, which is just phenomenal in my eyes. That's like 1,000 people who care what I have to say and like relate to what I say and think that what I say is important. And like, to spend most of my life feeling like nobody in the world understood me, to going to almost 1,000 people relating to what I'm saying, I mean, that's incredible. I never thought that I would feel this understood before, and I really thank all of you for, whether it's subscribing or commenting or liking or like whatever, like, I really do appreciate all of it, because it's surreal. I never thought that this many people would relate. And, you know, I was afraid for so many years that I was the only one, and now here I am, and there's all these other people. And so just because you don't know these people doesn't mean that those people don't exist. And yeah, so that's all I wanted to say on that. But thank you for listening, and I hope this is able to help somebody, or all of you, you know. But hopefully at least somebody. So I hope you all have a wonderful day. See ya.